You look ready for takeoff.
Yeah. My husband's work just let them expense monitors and headsets.
Oh, that's awesome.
So he let me borrow his new fancy headset for this call.
I love that. Okay, well, I'm going to be very mindful of your time. Thank you so much. Welcome to the inaugural season of Quotes from Quarantine. And during this
Hopefully
crazy,
the only season.
Say that again.
Hopefully the only season.
Hopefully the only season, but I always like an excuse to talk to people who are working in the space that I'm so passionate about. So tell me, obviously you're already working in a challenging space. We already work in a challenging space where there are particular societal pushbacks, challenges in terms of access to advertising and funding. So you're already a warrior. Is there anything specific that you're doing to stay connected to your team, to Alex, your co-founder, to your customers during what is really an unprecedented experience, certainly in our lifetimes?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny because our sales have not gone down. If anything, they've gone up, which is the different from everyone else, except all the shipments out of China are getting delayed. So we're back ordered on a lot of things. So
Okay.
there's normally it's challenging to get the word out, and suddenly it's very easy to get the word out because people who are sitting at home all day, who are being warned against contact with other people, are definitely buying vibrators.
Okay, well, that's awesome. It's turning lemons into lemonades.
Yeah.
So,
but I mean, we're doing a lot of these sorts of calls with our team. It's definitely a little hard on the hardware development side, because pretty soon we're going to be out of the tasks that people can either do remotely or can do by just coming in the office, grab a bunch of things, and then go home. So that's something's got to give there pretty soon.
So in terms of I was going to ask you, obviously, for some people being at home all day with their kids and their spouses and their work, would probably make them feel less romantic or less interested. Are you hearing from customers that, this is a welcome relief in this current environment? Are you getting different kinds of communication from customers than you normally get?
I think it's a mix. Some people are feeling more anxiety. But then I think for some couples, it becomes much easier to have things be a little bit more spontaneous.
Okay.
Because as opposed to the 15 minutes a day that you might spontaneously have where you're in the same room and you might just suddenly have time together and both be in the mood. Suddenly you have all of the time in the world that you're in the same room together. So if you happen to have the same moment at the same time, yay.
There's more options.
Yeah, there's more opportunity for spontaneity to happen, but then that's definitely flipped on the people arguing over the good computer setup and
And you're concerned, lots of people have concerns about obviously their livelihood and the safety of their families and a whole bunch of other things. And not
all
that
the anxiety.
Yeah, not that we're not always worried about that, but it's heightened.
And I also think it's interesting. I don't know what it says about people, but people are worried about where we make our vibrators because we make them in China.
Mm-hmm.
But China had a whole quarantine lockdown and they weren't shipping things out for any amount of time. And at this point, China is much safer than things made in the US.
It's interesting. I've heard that a lot, that China's back online, but there's no place to send the products to because there's so many challenges. Have you found that you have more time, different time? I find without having to travel, which I do several times a week, I have a lot of time where I can be focused and I don't have to be distracted. So that's sort of a nice upside, but certainly has its own challenges. Have you found that you're spending your time differently?
I actually ended up cooking the other night, which I almost never do because I tend to get home, 8, 9 p.m. from the office. And this time I could just take a really quick break, from 5:30 to 6:30 and then do some more work afterwards. So it's definitely not having commute time is nice, and the ability to just kind of like step into a domestic moment for a couple minutes instead of having it be like, I've gotten home from a 12-hour day and now do I want to do laundry? I can take like a 10-minute break from working to go do laundry. And I think that that mix is kind of good. But I also think that it's like important that I have a partner here too, because otherwise I think it would be really hard to get the timing right because he's on more of a schedule. That makes it easier for me to have some element of schedule to what I'm doing. I think that if I were by myself, I would just be terrible doing this.
You'd
working
be
from home,
hitting yourself
work-life
over
balance.
the head with those guitars in the background, right?
Yeah.
Do you find that there's particular activities that you're doing that maybe you do even in normal circumstances that you're doing more of or doing differently now that literally you are in one place for the foreseeable future?
I think the funniest thing that's happened is my husband hasn't had access to weights. So he's been having me like jump on his back so he can do squats.
Okay, that's a new one. I have not heard that yet. When they talk about doing body weight exercises, I'm not sure that's what they meant.
But he has been doing a bunch of body weight exercises of his own, but then he like to just do a little bit of what he was doing before. Just 5 to 10 squats a day with me on his back, that extra 140 pounds.
And in terms of, we talked about business and, there's nothing that's business as usual. And, my experience rarely in the space that we're in is there something that's called business as usual because the business by definition is unusual because of the particular challenges. Are there words of advice you have, not just to entrepreneurs in this space, but in general? There are a lot of challenges. You've solved some of them and some new ones have cropped up. Is there any advice you have for people? Again, because one of the challenges that I hear is that not knowing when this is ending and not knowing when life is getting back to normal and if normal is now something different. Do you have any advice as someone who's been in the trenches for a few years?
I've been in the trenches for a few years. Another thing that I have is I have 2 chronic illnesses. So that also gives me some perspective on this stuff. And I think the key to adverse situations is to take whatever might be positive about it and get what you can out of it during the time. So, if there's been something around your apartment that you've always been meaning to do, like pick one a week and get them done. Right. If you've finding the like insane, crazy upsides to having a sleep disorder or celiac have been one of my major coping mechanisms, and I feel like I do that with this too. So like I made some time to simultaneously watch a movie with my sister, which I probably wouldn't have done other times, but it was my way of trying to figure out like
that
how
sounds
do I
good.
cheer her up while I can't be there with her, or take your commute time and pick something you really want to do and replace all of your commuting time with that. Whether it's self-care or spending time with loved ones or watching TV.
Terrific. And how about from a business perspective? There are some realities that are difficult to manage around. Have you found some workarounds so how will you resolve this? You have lots of demand and you have some challenges with getting the inventory.
I mean, we're doing back orders. I think when you're working hardware, you're always in a situation where you just have to be like, well, it'll happen when it happens. When you're working with hardware, physical items moving around the world is always complicated. You always have a chance that just some shipment gets lost for 2 weeks or stuff like that. So it's just a matter of like being zen about the things you can't control. We're taking back orders. Those will ship when they get in. They'll get in when they get in.
Right.
And I think that also, I think you can do a similar thing from a business standpoint, which is to ask yourself, like, what tasks have been on the back burner that if I could just get them done because I'm not in the office, like just focus on the things that prioritize the things that are going to work better this way. At some point in time, like I just said, we're getting close to running out of those, but some things do work better when you're alone in a room, or some things do work better. I guess it's mostly the lack of interruptions, but
Well, you look calm. You know, every time you talked about having 2 chronic illnesses and you had the same bright smile on your face. And I think that, you know, based on my experience of knowing you and working in this space, there's a particular kind of person that is often drawn to the challenges of being in categories that people don't want to talk about, or categories where you're pushing against barriers to create new conversations.
Yeah.
So it seems like you were meant for quarantine, if there's such a thing. You are, you know, digging down and figuring out how to move ahead. How about from a cash management standpoint, which is obviously an issue for many, many small businesses, whether it's the day-to-day running of the business or you were in the midst of a fundraise, which from everything I've heard has been going much more slowly than usual because processes are just interrupted.
For us, it's less about the right now because, again, sales are great while people are at home. And it's more like looking forward with the major market crash that just happened. The likelihood that there's a lot of investment money flowing even to the end of 2020, it seems a lot lower. Mm-hmm. So shifting things more towards planning for sustainability instead of rapid growth, I think is something that we're looking at right now, and also something that everyone should sort of be thinking about.
And it's also become part of the conversation. You know, no one wants rapid growth and then a precipitous crash. So the sustainability of your business, maybe at a different growth phase, might be the reason that people are really starting to change their patterns.
But if people were planning that they were going to go out for investment anytime in 2020, there's a good chance that money isn't there anymore. And so figuring out what that new normal looks like for you is, I think, hard for a lot of small businesses.
And I think that's an important way to phrase it. What does the new normal look like for you? Because when we get back to whatever, I think the world is going to look very, very different.
Yeah.
You know, we just saw the first unemployment numbers, you know, that have come out since the crisis, which
I haven't seen them yet.
Daunting. You know, millions of people submitted claims. Speaking to, it depends who you speak to. You could speak to one person and think the sky is falling, and you could speak to another person on the same day and say, you know, we're weeks away, this is going great, we'll recover. And then there's most people who are somewhere in the middle. But well, wishing you continued success, and wish we could bottle your positive attitude and sprinkle it on the rest of the world. Hope sales continue to remain strong, and good luck. I'll look forward to talking to you again soon.
Great talking to you too. Bye.
Bye.